Right, we're ready. Right, afternoon everybody. Welcome to our first virtual planning meeting. Try and keep it pretty much same as we're doing council chamber. So first things first, if you can put your phones on silent or vibrate. Next thing is we'll start off with membership of the committee.
Yeah, if you go around it yourself, just confirm.
So I'll just confirm who we've got. Councillor Pattison, Councillor Pinnock, Councillor Bellamy, Councillor Sokol, Councillor Scott, and myself, Steve Hall. We still don't appear to have Donald, Councillor Firth, with us. Next, want to do minutes of the previous meeting.
Sorry, Chair, I think members who are here as observers should also be registered, shouldn't we?
Right, you can confirm that Councillor Firth's here, and if you want to acknowledge.
We've got Councillor Firth is with us now, and we've got Councillor Bolt guiding us through this afternoon's procedure. Thank you. Can we agree the meeting minutes of the previous meeting, which were the 27th of February? Can I have a mover?
I'll move them.
Moved by Councillor Pattison, seconded by Councillor Sokol. Item 3, interests and lobbying.
Can you just, sorry.
Can you just stick your hand up here just to, so that we've actually taken a vote and approved those minutes? Yeah, okay, thank you. Right, interests and lobbying. I'll start off with Councillor Firth. None. I think Donald's muted.
No, just wait 1 sec.
Donald's muted.
Okay, I'm all right, Councillor. Councillor Firth, you're on mute. Can you unmute, please?
Been coming back
on someone else.
Councillor Pattison.
None, Chair.
None, thank you. Councillor Pinnock.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Bellamy. She's on mute as well.
Yeah. Councillor Bellamy, you're also on mute. Yeah, okay.
That's it. Any interest on it?
None, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Sokol.
None, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Item 10, Chair, I won't be involved in any of the discussions on that item or participating in any of the voting.
Thanks, Cathy. Councillor Firth, can you hear us? You're on,
I think he can hear, it's just he's on mute.
you're on mute, Donald, at the moment.
Councillor Firth, if you can see the bar on your screen, there is a microphone which will probably have a cross through. You just need to go onto that to unmute.
Can't you ring him?
Councillor Firth, we're going to get someone to try to contact you to sort out your sound. Can you just raise your hand to indicate whether you've had any interest or lobbying? So if you raise your hand, Councillor Firth, just raise your hand if you haven't been lobbied or got any interest to declare.
No.
No. Okay.
Thanks, Donald.
And
Myself, I haven't been lobbied on anything either. Item 4, this is a meeting open to the public and is being webcast live. There's no requirement for the committee to go into private session today, which is a good thing. Item 5, questions by members of the public. Richard, do we have any?
We have received no written questions from members of the public.
Thank you. Item 6, deputations and petitions.
We have none received, Chair.
At this point, we had a meeting with a director of strategic planning a couple of weeks ago. Those decisions were taken by the director and myself. So I just want to get that quite plain, because I seem to remember the Huddersfield examiner got it wrong. There were 2 of us making them decisions, not just one. Matthias, I gather it's you now to give us a run through on the decisions that were done by Chief Exec Emergency Powers.
Thank you, Chair. Matthias Franklin, Head of Planning at Kirklees Council. Yeah, as you alluded to, 9 decisions in total were made through the emergency powers of the Chief Executives for planning applications. 8 of those applications related to major development proposals. 1 of them was classified as a minor development proposal. All 9 were approved in accordance with their recommendation. As you said, Chair, the decision was made by the Strategic Director, Carl Battersby, in consultation with you as Chair of the Strategic Planning Committee. All the applications were discussed through the Chair's brief process, and all ward councillors were informed of the recommendation and the decision process prior to the determination. As you were at that meeting, Chair, I don't know if you've got anything further to add. Thank you.
No, I mean, a lot of those that we actually did look at and discuss, we've had them at committee before. We've had site visits to them. So they've been discussed thoroughly. Everything were above board, and it were, yeah, pretty much straightforward. So we've got some applications out of the way, and hopefully today will go the same way. Back to you, Matthias.
No further comments, Chair. Thank you very much.
Right.
Unless any of your colleague councillors have questions.
Yeah. Any questions, anybody?
No, I don't think so.
Right. Thank you, everybody then. Right. Onto the applications. Before we go into a first full application, we've had on your updates, you'll notice that we've been asked about a deferment. This is for the one at Long Lane at Ells Eaton. I'm quite okay to defer it. Are committee members okay, or do you want anything to say? And we'll just get an update from Matthias as to give the reasons why. Matthias?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The planning application at Earls Heaton, which is on your agenda for houses and a small number of flats. Following publicity of the report, the applicant is acknowledging some of the issues that have been raised by ward councillors and residents and is looking to revise the plans. In effect, they're suggesting that they remove the apartment building, the 6 apartments, and in its place erect a single dwelling house. On the face of it, those changes seem perfectly reasonable, but they are material. They would require a reconsultation of the application with local residents, and therefore I suggest that if you're comfortable, the application is deferred, the application is then re-advertised, any further comments are made, and we bring back a report to a future planning committee with these latest plans. Nothing further to add, Chair.
if members are wanting to speak on this deferment, if you can use your toolbar, chat bar to type in something, kind of speak, so we know. If not,
Councillor Pinner.
Councillor Pinner.
I would like to move that course of action, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, Councillor Stockholm.
Mohan.
Yeah, Chair. I second Councillor Pinnick, because in the past it was very normal. If there is a revised application sent in by the applicant or agent, we always try to defer the application. So we are in the similar situation. It's a big changes in the application. So public want to know as well. There will be a 3-week public notice or something like that. So I agree with to defer this meeting. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mohan. Other committee members, if you can just indicate by putting your hand up, if you're in favour with it, we can see you.
Can we just go around the formal vote?
Oh, we've got to do a formal vote, so I'll start off with Councillor Firth. Are you okay to defer?
I'm okay to defer, yeah.
Thanks, Donald. Councillor Pattison?
Sorry, happy to defer.
Thanks, Carol. Councillor Bellamy?
Happy to defer, Chair.
Right, and I'm quite happy to defer as well. That's
6 votes for deferment, Chair, so that a motion
Full
can carry.
Full house.
I defer it. I'm happy to defer it.
yeah. Right, we'll move on to applications. First, before we just get there, as you notice, there's no site visits down. Now, if anybody wanted to go to site visits, they could go themselves or they could Google Earth it, whatever. I think we all know these sites and I think we've been to them before, so just for the public, if anybody's watching. Right, let's go to item 8. This is Huddersfield Road, Murfield, Kenmore Caravan site. Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, okay.
So item 8 on the agenda is the site at Kenmore Caravans on Huddersfield Road in Murfield. The application seeks outline planning permission for a Class A1 retail unit with associated parking, servicing and landscaping. At this stage, only the principle of the development and the means of access are before members today for consideration. The layout, scale, appearance and landscaping of the site are reserved for future approval. As you can see from this aerial view, the existing site is a caravan dealership that lies to the south of Huddersfield Road. Murfield Town Centre lies approximately 260 metres to the southeast. There are commercial premises to the southeast and northwestern site boundaries, with residential development opposite and the River Calder to the south. This slide shows the extent of the application site. The existing single and 2-storey buildings are positioned in the southeastern part of the site, with staff and customer parking to the front. The remainder of the site is given over to the caravan storage. This is the view along Huddersfield Road looking towards Murfield Town Centre. The site is on the right and you can just see the open storage of caravans and the main 2-storey building in the distance. This is a view from the other direction looking towards Cooper Bridge with the site on the left. This photograph shows the existing residential development on the opposite side of the road at the Maltings. These houses sit on slightly higher ground. This application is submitted in outline. An indicative layout has been provided. It indicates that the store would have a gross internal area of 1,890 square metres. The application is supported by a retail impact assessment which considers its impact on nearby centres including Murfield and Hetman-Wyke. A detailed analysis of the retail impacts are provided within the officer report, but it concludes that the proposed development would not have a significant adverse impact on the defined centres within the catchment area. As such, there are no objections to the proposal on retail policy grounds. Turning to means of access, A single point of access is proposed into the site from Huddersfield Road via a priority T junction with a right turn lane. The proposal would also include pedestrian refuge islands positioned centrally along the site frontage. A 30-mile-per-hour speed limit will also be introduced along the site frontage, as well as a no waiting at any time restriction to both sides of Huddersfield Road. The access has been subject to a Stage 1 road safety audit, which raised no highway safety concerns. At this location, Huddersfield Road is a wide load route. The proposed design recognises this requirement, and a clear carriageway width of 4.2 metres between curbs is maintained in both directions as required. It has also been demonstrated using vehicle tracking that the access can accommodate a 16.5 metre long articulated HGV. The local highway network has been assessed during the recognised development peak hours as set out in the report, and it can accommodate the level of traffic generated by this proposal. Additionally, the development will make a contribution towards the provision of Bluetooth detectors along the Huddersfield Road corridor to enable the monitoring of traffic and journey time information. There will also be a contribution to upgrade nearby bus stops with shelter and real-time bus information display. These stops are within convenient walking distance of the site and are served by services operating between Huddersfield and Brighouse. Overall, the design of the access is considered to accord with recommended guidance and is suitable to serve a development of the scale proposed. As previously noted, matters of scale, appearance, layout and landscaping are reserved for future consideration. However, this parameters plan has been submitted to show the maximum building height of 9.4 metres, which you can see on the lower diagram. This indicative section shows the relationship between the retail unit and the garage and house at number 31, the Maltings opposite. Officers are satisfied that suitable details can be agreed at reserve matter stage to ensure that the site will be in keeping with its surroundings and would not unduly impact on the residential development to the north. Additionally, conditions are recommended to limit the operating hours of the store, as well as controlling any fixed plant and external lighting. It's also relevant to highlight the proposal will deliver economic benefits through job creation. The application indicates that there will be approximately 40 full-time equivalent jobs within the store itself. It will also facilitate the relocation of the existing caravan business. There are no objections on flood risk or drainage grounds, and issues related to ecology, air quality and contamination can be addressed by conditions as summarised in the report. In conclusion, the principle of an A1 retail store on this site is considered to be acceptable, and suitable access arrangements have been proposed. All other matters are to be dealt with as part of the reserved matters and by condition. The application is therefore recommended for approval subject to conditions and the completion of a Section 106 agreement to secure the contributions set out in the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kate. Any speakers, Richard?
Yes, Chair, we have 3 speakers. We will just need to dial out for a couple of those, so we'll do that now, and then obviously we'll hopefully get them in to address the committee. So if you just bear with us, committee members, whilst we'll just get the first speaker. Right, committee members, we have Jonathan Rainey on the phone, who is an objector and speaking on behalf of the co-op. So I'm going to ask Jonathan just to call out, to say his name, just to check that everyone can hear him. And once we've got confirmation he can be heard, he will obviously have 3 minutes, obviously, to address you. So Jonathan, can you just confirm your name, please?
Good afternoon, Chair members. Jonathan Rainey speaking.
Can all members hear that?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fine. So, Chair, if you want to tell him when to.
Right, Jonathan, welcome. You've got 3 minutes. When it gets to 2.5 minutes, I'll just remind you that you've got 30 seconds left. Okay, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. Well, that's the first test passed anyway, so thank you for that. And I know it's new for everyone. Good afternoon, Chair members. My name is Jonathan Rainey from Pegasus Group, and I represent the co-op on a national basis. And as you know, co-op operates a store in Mirfield Town Centre. Just want to make the point to you all that it goes without saying that the co-op only objects to planning applications when they consider that they have legitimate planning reasons to do so. In this case, the co-op believes that there are sound planning reasons to object to this application, and I'll just summarise the reasons why, and they relate to essentially retail impact. The applicants have supplied a retail impact assessment that is based, in our view, on an out-of-date household survey that predates the development of a larger replacement store for Lidl at Station Road. And as a result of this, inaccurate assessments of the market shares and turnovers of existing stores in Mirfield have been made by the applicant, as well as those outside of the town centre. And therefore, the applicant's assessment of trade diversion from existing stores can only be based on objective data. This is evidenced by the fact that the co-op can confirm that the applicant has produced inaccurate turnover figures for its stores. In addition, the co-op believes that the applicant, in undertaking its assessment of trade diversion from existing stores, has given far too much weight to store size, i.e. similar facilities, and too little weight to location and proximity of existing stores to the proposed store. It stands to reason for the applicant to do this, given that smaller stores closer to the application site are afforded policy protection, and the larger ones outside of Mirfield Town Centre are not. By way of example, the applicant has projected that 83.5% of the proposed store's turnover is to come from larger stores, mostly outside of Mirfield, and only 5.8% from stores within Mirfield. This does not ring true when the site is a convenient location for local shopping trips and offers more adjacent parking than is available in the town centre itself. The co-op, which is an important retailer in the town centre, which facilitates linked trips to other retailers, considers that the likely impact as a result of the new store will be far greater than the 5% impact predicted by the applicant. In monetary terms, the impact projected by the applicant is only £150,000 per annum. Given that the site is only 600 metres away from the co-op, this is not realistic.
30 seconds left.
Can you hear me? 30 seconds. Higher levels of trade diversion would only harm the town centre in terms of reduced visits to the co-op. It is for this reason that the co-op considers that the application should be refused, as it would have a significantly adverse impact. We are aware that the council has chosen not to instruct an independent retail planning expert to advise the council on these issues, and we kindly request that if members have any doubts as to the impact of the town centre, that either the application be refused or it should at least be deferred so the council can take such independent advice. Thank you for your time, members.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rainey. We're just going to put you on hold now, just to check whether there's any clarification questions from members before we hang up. So if you just bear with me 1 second.
Thank you.
Okay, so over to you, Chair. We need to check whether there's any questions for clarification.
Members, have you got any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question on this application. It tells you about everything about this application, but it doesn't tell you who the people are applying for it. There's no name for the business, whatever. So this is something I can't get my head around. Generally, we know who's putting in these plans, but in this case, we don't. Well, it doesn't say in the paperwork anyway, and it hasn't been mentioned. It's just a store, a superstore.
Clarification.
Right. At this moment in time, this is just for clarification.
Well, I think we should
Right, well,
Stephen,
right.
I'm gonna say I want it deferred personally till somebody comes back and tells me all about it. Thank you.
Right, got that, Donald. Kathy Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted clarification on the retail, on the planning retail statement. Can officers give us a little bit more on that? Because I'm feeling a little bit uncomfortable because about the submissions, the figures. I just want to know a little bit more. Is that a consideration that we should have been looking into independently?
Yeah, we should.
Any more?
Okay, is that
right? Go back to Chair.
That's something we'll pick up as part of the officer debate. Right, okay. Oh, you can use it now then. Bye. Bye. So,
Matthias.
Thanks, Chair. I think if we finish all the speakers, if there are any further speakers or ward members who want to speak on this application, and then I've made a note of the comments from Councillor Firth and Councillor Scott. I'll come back to those to try and give you some clarifications on those questions, if that's okay. Thanks, Chair.
Yeah, that's fine, Matthias.
all right, that's great. Thank you very much, Matthias. So yes, we have now Councillor Martin Bolt, who wishes to speak as ward member.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Although I think procedurally, both Councillor Firth and Councillor Scott have suggested either deferral or refusal, which, if it's been proposed and seconded, should be taken before my contribution.
No.
Chair, can I come in?
Yeah, Kathy.
Yeah, Chair, I've not said I defer or refuse yet. I want point of clarification before I made any decision.
Yeah. Right, carry on, Martin.
I did ask for a deferral.
You can't, not yet.
Just to clarify, members, the reason we paused was just purely to ask whether there's any clarification questions for the first speaker. We will finish the speakers first, and then we'll go into obviously the committee debate. So, Councillor Bolt, if you're ready to speak.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And just to clarify, in the opening remarks, when you talked about site visits, I don't think this has been previously had any visits by members, although the pictures did give some overview. And when we've heard this locally, we did put to the developer's agent that the supermarket was Aldi, and that wasn't refuted. Looking firstly at the recommendation, the failure by the applicants to complete all the legal agreements within the specified time should not be delegated as discretionary for staff to consider or refuse. It should be a mandatory condition, and I would urge members to amend the recommendation to reflect that. The developers have had plenty of time in pre-planning and private discussions with Kirklees staff, and as already been indicated, reports when they come forward for approval should be fully worked up or deferred so that members have all that information to make the decision. This and all current applications should adhere to council policy, in this case reflecting to highways. The plans show that this is one of Kirklees' major arterial routes and will create permanent pinch points, thus affecting traffic flow, air quality and potentially emergency vehicle access. Highway staff make no reference to their work developing the Murfield-Dewsbury-Leeds route or any potential impact on Cooper Bridge, another major application in the offing. The application should be refused or deferred, and the applicant told to bring back designs and measures so that a pedestrian crossing under signalised and demand control is there to maintain traffic flow and road safety. As the outline application is to determine access, included in that reasonable system would be all matters relating to that, including the environmental impacts of that access. Yet the report dismisses calls for mitigation of air quality impacts created by queues, idling traffic and increased good vehicles, saying they are matters for landscaping or appearance. I would say they are material matters for this application, and we should ask members to amend the recommendation, if minded to proceed it, to include mitigating measures such as moss trees to provide air quality impacts. As you will see from the report, I question Kirklees' adherence to its own highways design guide, and staff will confirm that this places vulnerable users first and foremost and vehicles are secondary. This application ignores that policy and acquiesces to more traffic and the developer's application. Junction assessments are only conducted during Friday and Saturday hours, and although not possible at present, surely a meaningful assessment would take place over longer periods to model all forms of usage. Committee should defer for a full assessment to be produced. We've heard about diverting custom away from other shops. In terms of traffic, that alters the junction flows, and Doctor Lane currently allows only one vehicle to get to the White Line at the moment, which, because an increased number will be coming to this store, that would create congestion. This should be remodelled and demonstrated to committee. The report also says that Kirklees staff have had to correct applicants' submissions. One wonders which errors haven't been picked up on. Paragraph 10.53 contradicts information previously given by Kirklees staff to the planning committees, where Station Road Junction, the main one in the middle of Murfield serving the supermarkets, rail station, industrial areas and Hopton south of the river, was previously said to be working at 110% of capacity. We're now told that all junctions are below capacity. This is contradictory information, and I would suggest that committee wants to see capacity figures for each junction, not just statements saying that everything's hunky-dory. Without all information, you could refuse or defer. Staff say that because Kirklees haven't previously provided a cycle lane on both sides of the road, they shouldn't consider it now. Well, you have to start somewhere. As you will know, Chair, if we hadn't agreed to build the Spen Valley Greenway in stages, we wouldn't have that wonderful greenway network that Kirklees now has. You have to start somewhere. And what would be coming along as part of the Murfield-Dewsbury? Would that include cycle lanes? Kirklees could have applied for further cycle lanes as part of the £2.5 billion from government for increasing active travel during COVID. But in the present circumstance, and in tying with other things, taking funds from developers as they comes along allow us to improve the network incrementally. Failing to plan means you plan to fail. This should be refused for failure to compliance with Highways Design Guide, and let's show developers that when the council passes a policy, it means it. Air quality is another crucial factor, and the curb.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Right, sorry members, we've got one more speaker, and that is the applicant, who's Mr. Keith Nutter. So we will just try and get him on the line now, so just bear with us whilst we do that.
I didn't even get a countdown. Did I get 5 minutes there, Steve?
A 30-second warning at 4 minutes, 30 seconds.
I didn't hear it, mate. I was going to say, in the words of one of our colleagues, this needs another kite of looking at.
Really interesting.
Chair, do we have one further speaker, the applicant, Mr. Keith Nutter?
Yeah, Richard's trying to get in now.
Thank you. Okay. Right. Hi, members. We've got the applicant on the line now, so we're just going to ask him to say his name, confirm that you can hear him, and then obviously he will address you. So over to Mr. Nutter.
Hello, this is Keith Nutter here, the applicant.
Can all members hear?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So.
Right, Keith, you've got 3 minutes. After 2 minutes, 30 seconds, I'll give you a marker that you've got 30 seconds left. And it's start when you're ready, Keith.
Okay, thanks, Chair. Kenmore Caravans have been trading from Murfield for the past 20 years. They employ 20 full-time staff but need to relocate to smaller premises within the local area due to the changing nature of caravan sales. The business needs to restructure itself, which will involve providing a better online sales service rather than having a large showroom that members of the public can visit regularly. I think this is even more important following recent pandemic, where online sales is going to be a crucial part of their future business. In order to fund the remodelling, Kenmore Caravans, in partnership with the applicant, are looking to redevelop the existing site for a discount food retail unit. I appreciate there's been various names bandied around at the moment, but there's a number of interested parties. Some of them have been mentioned, but at this stage, because it's an outline, there's no definitive name assigned to this application. As highlighted in the officer's report, significant information has been provided with the application in relation to the benefits of enhanced choice of food stores within the Murfield area. In assessing the impact, it's been demonstrated that none of the existing stores will be adversely affected, and there would be no material harm to the established town centre of Murfield. I appreciate the comments raised by the co-op, which we have addressed as part of the application. And at the end of the day, with any impact assessment, there is an element of professional judgment. But it's quite clear that the proposal here is for a discount food store, and like will compete with like, hence a trade draw from Lidl. Furthermore, the store is in an edge of centre location, which will encourage linked trips with the established centre, be it by car or by foot. But in addition to retail issues, representations has also been received relating to highway matters. In response to these representations, the applicant has worked in partnership with the council's highways officers to provide an access solution that addresses all of the concerns raised. The heavily revised access to the site provides a number of benefits, including preventing right-turning vehicles blocking the main carriageway and providing pedestrian refuge islands to assist the crossing of Huddersfield Road. It's important to note here that I appreciate the comments of the councillor, but the highways officers have designed it in full agreement with us. And we did look at more formal pelican and zebra crossings as part of this scheme, but we're advised by highways officers at the council that these would not work on this part of Huddersfield Road, primarily due to the infrequent nature of people crossing at the point. If you simply step out onto a zebra crossing in a 40-mile-an-hour zone, they are dangerous. Hence, the refuge islands were presented as the best option and agreed by the council and their officers. As can be seen from the officer's report, all matters including retail, highways, ecology, design, etc. have been considered very carefully and have resulted in a proposal which your officers believe is acceptable.
That's 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
For these reasons, I would urge you to support your officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you,
Okay,
Keith.
just hold on the line 1 minute and I'll just check everything was clear. Okay, just to check with members, was everything okay in terms of it being clear?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
Fine.
Fine.
Right, that's fine. Thank you very much, Mr. Nutter.
Okay, thank you.
That's it, Chair.
Right, thanks. Matthias, is there any points there you want to clear up?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, a couple of points. Councillor Firth, you mentioned you didn't know who the applicant was. In effect, Councillor Firth, the applicant is Mr. Nutter, who is making the application. The application is in outline form. Should it have outline planning permission and the site is sold, it is likely that a discount food retailer will purchase the site, and that's what the report alludes to. But there is no requirement to know who the end operator is at outline stage. You're being asked on the principle, not the detail of whom. And even if you were asked about the detail, who it is not a material planning consideration. But you've got enough information in the report and on the plan to allude to you that these types of schemes look very similar to a Lidl or an Aldi food store. If it is one of those, it would be similar to what you've got, but it is not really a material planning consideration. On the other matters raised, Councillor Scott, I think you raised a matter around related to the approach to the retail impact assessment. Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I think the issue is we don't, as a matter of course, require external consultants to advise us on retail assessments. We have that capability and capacity within our skill set and within our profession, and therefore within the council already. The applicants have done a fairly detailed retail impact assessment. At consultation, the issues raised by the speaker on behalf of the co-op were set out to the applicant, and a further retail response was received. In the report, you'll see it through the appraisal section, a fairly detailed response to the assessment of the retail planning policies, the edge of centre development assessment, and the sequential requirements that we have to go through. And you'll see also the impact on the food stores within the centre and those on the outside of the centre as set out in the report. So in terms of an assessment, I think that's okay in terms of officers being able to provide that. If you want any detailed comments on the impacts on particular stores within the centre or outside of the centre, my colleague Sarah's on the line. She'll be able to give some detailed assessment. But in terms of a process of do we need an external consultant, the answer is no. We only use them where we want their support to do a more forensic assessment. But for applications like this, it's within our ability to provide a meaningful recommendation. I hope that answers the two questions I had, Chair. If there's anything else, please do let me know. Thank you.
Thanks, Matthias. Next speaker is Councillor Bellamy.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of comments. The junction assessment, it's been alluded to that it was only done on a Friday and a Saturday. I'm presuming that's correct. I would have thought probably further junction assessments should be done. You know, what about Sunday to Thursday? And there was a mention of speed limits. Is the speed limit being reduced to 30, or is it actually being left at 40? Because I'm a bit confused on what was actually said there. So if somebody could answer those questions, please.
Right. I'll get these questions through first, and then we can go back to Matthias or Sarah or whoever. Next up, it's Kathy Scott.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Mine's also, what Councillor Bellamy said, I was concerned about the highway safety and the 2 speed limits. I am familiar with the area, and it goes from, if you're departing, heading towards Huddersfield, it goes from a 30-mile-an-hour zone to a 40, and that Kenmore is in between that, and I'm deeply concerned about the crossing points as well. So I just wanted point of clarity on that, because I think Councillor Boat's put it on the report. He's actually typed it in on 10.51. It directly contradicts what the developer has said. So I just want some clarity around that, if you don't mind.
Thanks, Kathy. Next, I've got Councillor Firth.
Right, yeah. Just let me make sure. Yes, my microphone is open. Yes, the one, it was a road junction. The amount of traffic at these road junctions, obviously, it's not being a great deal of traffic. It's below par. Well, you know, in the last 10 weeks, I don't know when they've done this traffic thing, but in the last 10 weeks, it will be below par because there's been very little traffic on the road. So, I mean, I have to ask that question, because it seems to me as though this has been put together. You've got a third party involved here. You've got the Kenmore people there putting out this plan and assuming they know how a retail store works, and then hopefully getting it passed as an outline, so somebody will come along then and probably, when it's passed as an outline, put things in there that we don't want. So come on, you know, we've got to think hard about this. Don't let's jump in and say, fine. I think it needs deferring for somebody to give it a quarter looking at, to be honest. Thank you.
Thanks, Donald. Next, it's Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a number of concerns about this, partly questions, partly statements. Yorkshire Water say there are a couple of sewers going across the site, and I know technically it's perhaps not part of the stuff that we're asked to make a decision on, but can a building be fitted in considering where the sewers are on the site? The access is something that we're asked for. I'm assuming that the access is in the same place, more or less, as the access to the caravan site. But I would imagine that the number of vehicles going in and out of that access will be a lot greater than the existing use, and I am not at all sure that I'm reassured about people turning right coming out of the site, or people waiting to get into the site because there's no space. I'm not sure that has been dealt with. I also have a question about the sequential test, and it does seem to me that the sites that are mentioned don't seem real somehow. They were all miraculously either not available or not big enough. So I do think that there is some doubt there as to what the truth is for that. Whether I think it should be refused or deferred, I will hold my judgment at the moment, because I'm not quite sure what is the best way of doing this. And just as a final thing, I did go and look at the site this morning, just to make sure that I knew what we were talking about. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Next, Councillor Sokol.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, Councillor Donald asked deferment earlier on without going into the members' debate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Asking he doesn't know the name of the applicant, doesn't know who is the discount retailer. it's quite clear from Mr. Chair, from Matthias Franklin. Yeah, this is the outline application. It's asking about who is the retailer, whatever. It's not a planning material at this stage because it's just a outline application. Yeah. With regard to the member the raised about the assessment, traffic assessment, Friday and Saturday. Friday and Saturday to me is the more busiest time where we need some traffic assessment, which the applicant have done it. Yeah. With regard to the question raised by Martin Bolt with the air quality. If we look into the report on page 27, air quality, where is a air quality, Environmental Service have recommended a number of conditions to address air quality issue associated with the development. These include so and so. So there is a air quality report there, which is Environmental Service have recommended, which will be implemented. So I don't know how we can defer or refuse this application. I don't think we can justify this application by refusing or by deferment. I think we should go ahead to approve the officer recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Mohan. Matthias.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, please can I ask if Chris Dowves, the highway engineer, can come back, because a lot of the member questions he has an answer for. They're in the report, but they're reasonable comments and questions. Just on the issue about the drainage and the Yorkshire Water sewers under the site, which Councillor Pinnock made a comment about, they are matters for layout, and that would be a reserved matter issue. In principle, you could divert a sewer. So there are solutions to the building being sited with sewers under the site, but it's a detailed layout matter. It isn't a matter for the principal. So if I step down and ask Chris Dowles to come forward. Thank you, Chair, Committee.
Thanks, Matthias. Chris?
Good afternoon, Chair, Councillors. It's Chris Downes, Group Engineer, Highway Development Management. I've tried to pick up the points that councillors raised as we're going through, so I'll try to go through those as they were made. Regarding the traffic surveys, they were actually undertaken in February, Friday the 7th and Saturday the 8th of February, and they were taken between what are the recognised peak periods for food stores, and that's why we asked for them to be taken at those times, because that's when the food stores are actually at their busiest. Regarding the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit along the site frontage, currently, you're absolutely right. Currently, it sort of goes from 40 to 30, sort of towards the eastern end of that site. As part of the proposals, the speed limit will be repositioned to the western end of the site, so the speed limit along the site frontage will actually be 30 miles per hour. Regarding turning into the site, the right turns into the site, obviously the layout does includes a right turn lane, which should take traffic out of the running lane, and so it doesn't obstruct flows on the running lane. We feel there's sufficient capacity in that. It's been assessed on the basis of that design, and it shows that there's sufficient capacity to accommodate the right turning vehicles. Were there any other points that members wanted to raise?
Out of the site.
Sorry?
Right turning out of the site.
Oh, the right turn out of the site. Yeah, obviously, any vehicles turning right out of the site they'll be stacking within the car park itself. I mean, obviously the junction's been assessed for capacity and based on the flows on Huddersfield Road, and it shows that there will be some queuing, but it won't be excessive queuing within the car park, and you should be able to find a sufficient acceptance gap on Huddersfield Road to turn out. I mean, I've actually got the figures in front of me, but it was assessed using standard methodology and programs for doing that sort of thing.
it, Chris.
Okay. Right.
Right, thanks, Chris.
Okay.
Councillor Pattison.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't got any questions and not really much in the way of comments. I mean, I would like, if Moan Sokol actually moved the application, I think I would like to second it. As an outline application, I feel it's a good use of this site. I personally would be sorry to see it go because I'm a caravaner, but other than that, I think it's a reasonable use of the site. The only other comment I would make would be it would be quite a good idea, I would have thought, to make the whole of that road 30 miles an hour. I often find it confusing, the fact that it goes from 40 to 30 or 30 to 40, depending on which way you're coming. Expect it to be a 30-mile-an-hour road because of its size, and also it's quite a busy road anyway, so make it all 30. That's the only thing I would want to say. But I will second it if Moan has moved it. Thank you.
Right. Thanks, Carol. Donna?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to actually second Councillor Firth's deferral because I'm really uncomfortable with this. I just don't think we've got all the information. You know, there's the retail impact assessment, there's the junction assessments, the capacity figures. I'm just really uncomfortable, so I'd like to second the deferment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donna. Kathy?
Yeah, Chair. Councillor Bellamy actually beat me to it. Whilst I understand that things can be dealt with under reserved matters, I do think there is highways issues. I do have some concerns about that. And I think a deferral at this moment would be better served for the applicant to come back and provide us with some more information. So I'm happy. Well, Donna's already done it, but I would be seconding Councillor Firth.
Thanks, Kathy. Any more questions?
I'd just like to say that on a deferment, it's a case of they can sit down and do the job properly rather than have a lot of guesstimating going on. Because I'm really worried. It is an outline application, as Mo Sokol says. I agree with him. But once you've got the outline passed, you're left with whatever they come up with. Then we need to find out, both as Donna said and as Kathy says, what is going on, and we need to see that it's right before it even goes to a committee. So deferring it is a good idea. It's not saying refuse it. It's basically saying, look, come back with some concrete evidence. Never mind all this. There's a lot of guesswork gone into this, and I don't work on guesswork, me. So that's why I wanted to defer it, and that's it. End of. Thank you, Stephen. Everybody's gone quiet.
Before we go to a vote, I think I can guess which way this is going to go. Matthias, if I can bring you in now, we need to get some concrete if it's to be deferred.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Thanks, members. Good debate. I do appreciate the issues that are being raised. I want to be really clear. Although it's been moved, there are two motions, aren't there? There's one for an approval and there's one for a deferral. Just on the deferral, to be really clear, if it does be deferred, can I just ask that we really be clear about what additional highway surveys we want? You've heard from your engineer that the surveys done so far are at the optimal peak time as far as the guidance goes for retail uses in terms of that Friday, Saturday survey. So unless and clearly at the minute, with the limited number of movements on the network, it wouldn't be appropriate to do further survey work because you wouldn't necessarily have a true picture of what the highway is like. So I'm just really want to be very clear with members what are you asking us to ask the applicant to do above and beyond what you've heard today? Just so I can be explicit, if it's deferred. Thank you.
Stephen?
Yeah.
Can I just say in reply to Matthias there, I travel quite often through Murfield at varying times of the day, not always Friday and Saturday, and I always find the Rose Road junctions are very, very busy. So I don't know, where all these numbers have come from and saying it isn't, the road junctions are about normal but not busy. Because it's funny when I go through, and it doesn't have to be a Friday, it can be a Wednesday, it can be a Thursday. Those road junctions at the traffic lights, they're queuing traffic to get in and out, and sometimes you have to wait through 2 or 3 sets of changes before you can get out into the main road. So, I do think we need to give it a little bit more looking at. As I say, we're not refusing it, we're just saying defer it for them to come back with something that at least ways we can believe in and know that this is right. Because once the outline's being passed, you're stuffed with whatever comes up then. It's simple as that. I'm not going to say any more now, Steve, and I'm going to shut you up.
Thanks, Donald. Donna, do you just want to give us a quick bullet point on your thinking behind deferring it?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think we need to revisit the pedestrian crossings, because if it's a 30, then pedestrian crossings are better than what comes under a 40, as well as revisit the junctions and also the retail impact. I think that needs re-looking at as well. So I think that might give some sort of summary on why I'm thinking it needs looking at again and further information.
Yeah. Thanks, Donna. Kathy, have you got anything further to say in wanting it deferring?
Yeah, mine was specifically on retail impact assessments. It was raised that the figures submitted were not right. So I would like to have that looked at for that to come back. That's the reason for a deferral. And also about the highways concerned, about the crossing implications, because I think it's going to have an impact on the maltings where the residential are. You're approaching also traffic on Slipper Lane. There's tailbacks all around that area where there's already existing traffic lights there that causes a tailback problem. So it's all around that, just all for them to sit down and, as Councillor first said, to discuss it and then bring back the information.
Thanks, Kathy. 3 more speakers. First off, Matthias.
Thank you. Very quickly, thanks for the clarification, members. Just to be clear, clearly doing further survey work in this current time with limited movements on the network will not give you a true picture. So a deferral isn't a quick deferral in any shape or form, so you're aware. There is also a crossing proposed on these plans. It's not a full pelican, but you can see there are crossing points proposed. Can I just ask Chris Dowes just to come back in? It may not overcome the issues. It may still need to be deferred. But I think there's a lot more information that perhaps members' questions than the members have been clear on in the report. Thank you.
Chris?
Yes, right. Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Matthias. Obviously, the junction design incorporates 2 pedestrian refuges to assist pedestrians crossing the road, one either side of the junction. When we looked at pedestrian crossings, it wasn't felt that the footfall would be sufficient to warrant a signalised crossing. I mean, obviously that's, if members wish it, it's something that could be looked at again, but when it was looked at and discussed during the process of assessing the application, they didn't think there'd been the numbers, or there could be very limited, there might be a lot at a certain particular time and then none. And it wasn't felt that a pedestrian crossing was right for the sort of numbers that would be thought would be crossing. Just a point I wanted to make, I did ask to speak, Chair, when we were summing up, just for members' benefit, stores of this type don't actually, well, have food supermarkets full stop, don't actually generate very little additional traffic on the network. So the network may look busy now, but what you know, there's so many people going out to buy food. It just means you go to a different store. The traffic is, you know, most of the traffic is already on the network going somewhere else. It will either divert from where it goes to this site, or it might be already passing this site, so not get to the site it's actually going to. So sometimes they can have improvements on other junctions because customers arrive at this site before they go to their usual supermarket. So it would, you know, junctions further down the line get less traffic, or alternatively people divert from where they normally go here. They do generate a small, but it is only a very small percentage of actual new traffic on the network. The majority of traffic is already on the network. It's just diverted or passed by. There's very little new trips generated. So I just thought I'd just clarify that point.
Right, thanks, Chris. Right, I've two more speakers and then we'll see if we can go to a vote one way or the other. Next up, it's Andrew, Councillor Pinner.
Thanks, Chair. My query had been answered by Matthias, so we'll go to the vote, I think.
Thanks, Andrew. Mohan?
Hi, Chair.
Hi,
Chair,
yes.
I just want to say about some member asking about pedestrian crossing. I'm not happy with another pedestrian crossing on this road. We are already talking about, all member is the issue. It's a very busy road with more traffic queues, and so I think if we ask and put some more pedestrian crossing, it will make the traffic worse than it is now. So I don't think there is as a highway officer said, there is a provision at the traffic light to crossing for the pedestrian. I think that's good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. We've had it moved and seconded for deferment, which were done before accepting the officer's recommendation. So I'll take the deferment first. First with Deborah before we vote on something that not following procedure. Deborah, am I allowed to take deferment first or the recommendation first?
Hello, Chair. Thank you. It's Deborah Wilkes, Legal Officer here.
Yeah.
I don't know that we have a full clarification on what the applicant has to come back with to satisfy members if it were to be deferred. So I think it may be easier to proceed with the move and seconder for the approval where we have full reasons. If that falls, then we can go back and take the vote to defer, and that is in accordance because effectively the second recommendation, second proposal alters the recommendation on the table. So yes, we can do that. It's just a matter of how we have done it. So I would suggest that we do the vote to accept the recommendation first and see how that goes.
Okie dokie. So that was moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Pattison. Alonjo over now to Richard, who will go around table and take the vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So I'll just I'll call out your name, and then if you should just clarify whether you are for the approval, whether you're against the approval, or if you wish to abstain. So if we can start with Councillor Bellamy.
Against.
Councillor Firth.
Against.
Councillor Pattison.
For.
Councillor Pinnock.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
Against.
Councillor Sokol.
For.
And then finally Councillor Hall.
Against.
Okay, so to confirm, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 who voted against. 2-4, so that motion has fallen to approve the officer recommendation, which means we can now, Chair, go on to the deferment. Deborah, do you have any comments to make before we make that vote?
Yes, I do. We need to be absolutely clear about what extra information, surveys, highways matters need to be looked at, or what evidence needs to be brought forward by the applicant in addition to that which has already been supplied, and also take account of the current lockdown situation for that extra information.
So Matthias, can you, is there anything at all that you can took our way?
Yeah, right. Let's do it. So there is a highway concern that this committee has raised that currently hasn't been explained sufficiently in survey and in the report. We will look again with the applicant at the impact of the comings and goings on that junction, proposed junction, which is what members have alluded to. And we will look again at the crossing point. Although you've had an explanation from the engineer, we will look again because that's what the committee have raised. So that is what I'm going to suggest we would ask the applicant to review on highways matters. On the retail assessment, Councillor Pinnock raised a question of is it true? Although the answer in the report is we think it is accurate and acceptable, we will again ask the question of the applicant, and we will assess the response to any questions, comments made by the committee in relation to the retail impact assessment. Though I don't think it is reasonable or fair to ask them to redo the exercise. I would just ask them for a because they're professional people operating in professional climates, and they've provided professional evidence that your officers have assessed. So I don't believe there is a different answer, but we will ask them again to look at the evidence, and it is a number of months since that evidence was done. So we will ask them if there is any further evidence in relation to retail sales to put in, and we will bring that back to you, because we have to be fair on the applicant about what's reasonable. Even though you're asking us to defer, we have to still do reasonable things. So those are the two issues I've identified. If members are satisfied with that, I'll take that to officers and officers on to the applicant. If there's anything further, please let me know, members. Thank you. Sorry, Councillor Scott.
Cathy.
Yeah, Chair, I just wanted to mention that the retail report, the submission that they made, there was a query around the date and how accurate that information was. It up to date? For me, it is how up to date was it? So I'm not, challenging them as they don't know what they're talking about. It's we need the accuracy of how recent was that up to date. Was it 2020? Was it 2017? I don't know. I think this is things that I needed to know. So
here.
Right. So the mover and seconder of deferment were Councillor Firth and Councillor Bellamy.
I'll go around. Sorry.
So I'll go over to Richard now, and then we'll go around table, ask him to cast your vote.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So to confirm, this vote is to vote to defer the application, and the points obviously have been highlighted by Matthias. So I will start with Councillor Bellamy.
For.
Councillor Firth.
For.
Councillor Patterson.
Against.
Councillor Pinnock.
Against.
Councillor Scott.
For.
Councillor Sokol.
Against.
And Councillor Hall.
For.
Okay, so to confirm, we have 4 members voting for deferment, 3 members voting against deferment. So the application is deferred. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Right. Next item, page 31, item 9, and this is Slipper Lane, Murfield. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. So this item relates to land at Slipper Lane in Murfield. It refers to phase 2 of the development, the Murfield 25 site. So Murfield 25 is a 12.4 hectare site located on the northern edge of Murfield. It has an extensive frontage onto Leeds Road, the A62, to the north. To the east are the rear of houses on Sunnybank Road, with Slipper Lane lying to the west. The site is bisected by Taylor Hall Lane. The site is a mixed-use allocation in the Kirklees local plan for residential and employment uses. It has the benefit of an extant planning permission for residential development on the northeastern part of the site between Taylor Hall Lane and Sunnybank Road, here, and employment on the southeastern part of the site between Taylor Hall Lane and Slipper Lane. This application seeks approval of reserved matters for phase 2 of the employment site. It specifically seeks approval for the layout, scale, appearance and landscaping of 5 industrial units. The principle of these units has been established by the previous planning approvals as well as the mixed-use allocation. The application also seeks approval for the discharge of 19 conditions that relate to phase 2. These are detailed at paragraph 3.5 of the committee report. Phase 1 of the approved employment site is already complete, as you can see in this photograph. It is occupied by Westco, who are an aeronautical company. The photograph also shows the completed site access, which will also serve this phase 2 development. This is a view of the rest of the Leeds Road frontage extending down to Slipper Lane. This slide shows the proposed layout of phase 2. The completed access and phase 1 building are on the right-hand side and are shown in grey. This application relates to phase 2 on the left, which are the units in colour. 5 units are proposed within use classes B1, B2 and B8. These are either light industrial, general industrial or storage and distribution units. They range in size from 1,750 square metres to 5,482 square metres. Access points, parking and loading areas for all units are taken from the Central Estate Road. The proposed layout is a logical progression from the phase 1 development and the existing access. The units are set back a little from the road and face inwards so that activity and car parking is focused internally within the site. These access arrangements, as well as delivery, loading and unloading provisions, are all considered to be acceptable. The areas allocated for parking are also considered acceptable, although the specific parking arrangements for each unit will be conditioned prior to the occupation of that unit, as the requirements for parking and HGV loading will vary between industrial and storage and distribution uses. This is the additional condition set out on the Planning Committee update sheet, along with a response from Highways Development Management. Highways DM comments that the applicants have indicated that the majority of units will be Class B8, storage and distribution. However, it is possible that an B2 occupancy, which is general industry, may occur, in which case it would be appropriate to require an updated parking and servicing layout for that unit. A Class B2 use will require less HGV parking than a Class B8 use. This will free up additional space to reconfigure the layout, potentially increasing the number of parking spaces. The wording of the condition is set out on the update sheet. Each of the units also have cycle parking, bespoke electric vehicle charging points and internal changing facilities for staff. There will also be a condition prohibiting external storage. In terms of landscaping surrounding the entire site, including phase 1, is a landscape buffer zone, which is required as part of the site allocation and approved as part of the original outline consent. This buffer zone is between 10 to 20 metres in width. Details for the planting have already been agreed for the area surrounding phase 1. Those details have been extended around the site. Additional tree and shrub planting around the perimeter, including the Leeds Road frontage on either side of the main access points and surrounding the car park, is also proposed and is considered acceptable overall. These next few slides show the scale and appearance of 3 of the 5 units, which is reflected across all the units. This is Unit 3, positioned centrally within the site. The units range in height from 5 to 6 metres up to 7 to 8 metres, with shallow pitch roofs. By comparison, the existing Phase 1 building is approximately 15 metres high at the highest point. The buildings are designed as modern industrial units, largely constructed in metal cladding on brick plinths with areas of glazing. Their appearance is similar to the Phase 1 building and is considered appropriate for an area allocated for industry. They will deliver modern industrial units that fit for purpose. This slide shows Unit 4 at the front of the site, and finally Unit 5 at the rear. This final slide is the proposed street scene along Leeds Road, showing the relationship to the existing Phase 1 building and to the existing houses on Slipper Lane. As set out in the report, the main outlook from these residential properties will be onto the landscape slope behind a retained hedgerow to the boundary. In addition to the above reserve matters, the applicant is seeking to discharge a number of conditions insofar as they relate to Phase 2. These are detailed in the committee report. All of the pre-commencement conditions that apply to the whole site have already been discharged and implemented. The conditions before you today relate specifically to the implementation of Phase 2. An assessment of each condition is set out in the report, and in summary, the submitted details are satisfactory to discharge the conditions. So in conclusion, the principle of employment on this site is long established, and the implementation of Phase 1 has safeguarded and delivered employment opportunities within the district in accordance with the allocation within the plan. The reserve matters now sought and the details of the discharge conditions are acceptable, and implementation of Phase 2 and the discharge conditions will deliver further employment opportunities. For the reasons set out in the report and the update sheet, approval of the reserve matters and discharge of the stated conditions is therefore recommended. Thank you, Chair.
I've got two people who've actually registered to speak. I believe Councillor Bolt will wish to speak as ward member. Is that correct, Councillor Bolt?
Yes, please.
Okay, so Chair, for Councillor Bolt first.
Yeah. Right, Martin, you have 5 minutes. I'll
Thank
give you a
Chair.
reminder at 4 minutes 30 seconds.
Much appreciated, although I probably won't need that this time, Steve.
Right.
The visual impact slide that we had, I don't know if the officer can put that back up while we're speaking. That doesn't give a proper representation. The nearest dwelling is immediately on the other side of Leeds Road and is set higher than Leeds Road and those. So we'll be looking down on those. And I think that doesn't truly represent the picture from that new house, which is actually in Liversedge and Gomersall Ward. This report is better than some previous versions that we had, but I think there's still some light on detail and some missing facts. Unlike other items that you consider, in seeking to discharge conditions, you don't have a time limit on the recommendation. Without that time limit, developers can just drag things on. One of those examples is the site is operational, as we've just been told, but highways matters, Section 38 agreements and others, have not yet been finalised from previous agreements. So what happens if those aren't agreed on? Are you going to evict Westco? We were told previously, when issues were raised, that the developers had technical breaches of planning conditions, which to residents has been a bit like being a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't. No mention of any breaches of planning conditions, any complaints or investigations is made in this report. If I could suggest for future, where you have a report like this, paragraph 3.5 listing the conditions, underneath those, it would then list the issues seeking to discharge or relevant. So you've got everything encapsulated in one area. You could ask that this is brought back for a proper report written so you can clearly see that. For example, condition 13 refers to external lighting, but no mention is made of action which has already been taken to reduce the impact on those houses that you saw in your visual impact there, to protect them from light pollution, or the fact that bright lights initially were already shining into the faces of drivers on Leeds Road going towards Huddersfield. Condition 6 mentions frequent safety issues from the existing boundary treatments, or there's no mention, sorry, of frequent safety issues from the boundary treatments, banners falling down, fences falling on the highway. And again, if you look at one of the photos that were shown, that shows the raggedy nature of some of the banners that in the wind that we're currently having will end up across in Liversedge soon. On condition 19, where is the mention and the photos for you to look at of pollution which has previously been reported of oil and other pollutants running off site across the footway and into the outfalls and watercourses? There is no traps already in place and no enforcement against that pollution. If condition 24 has to be satisfied, why is the first tenant moving in now when they should have been satisfied? They would have been fully operational, but for the COVID-19 situation and the fact that they had a burglary where reputedly nearly £500,000 of the equipment was stolen. Clause 28, huge buildings are being erected and the houses are going on the Taylor Wimpey site, but it's saying you haven't agreed a construction plan. That just does seem a bit backwards round, doesn't it? Clause 29 is routinely flouted with no action by Kirklees or the police. Vehicles parked on the footway, on the shared cycleway, and dirt and stuff left all over the highway. Again, that's a breach of planning. It's a breach of highways. Previous planning conditions have talked about the need for wheel washing facilities. When I've approached the developers, they haven't got those on site. So they're flouting conditions. Paragraph 4 is supposed to include enforcement history, but I know that this is not true because of the number of issues that I've passed on behalf of residents. I've met staff on site myself. Murfield Town Council has written frequently to Kirklees, and the Robert Town residents have lobbied their councils on the other side of the road about issues such as flouting working hours, dust pollution, highways and light pollution. So again, this report is not truly factual, and I think you need to see all those to consider if you can trust people to discharge conditions or if you want to delegate conditions or see them brought back. Again, the report refers to the Highways Design Guide, which is now
30 seconds.
Where is the report about the dangerous situation and the fact that developers have changed the design without reference to committee? Who's in charge of this process? Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Martin. Next section.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we have another speaker now. That is Matthew Shepard, who is the agent who will be speaking on behalf of the applicant. So, members, if you just hold on a moment whilst we try and get him on the line. Okay, right. So we have Matthew Shepard. So Matthew, if you just introduce yourself so all committee members can confirm they can hear you.
Hello, this is Matthew Shepard. I'm a director at Turley and I'm the agent for the applicant.
Okay. Members can all hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right, Matthew, you've got 3 minutes and your 3 minutes starts now.
Chair, councillors, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I hope you and your families are well, and thank you for coming together in this unusual way. This application is a critical piece of the economic strategy of the local plan. It's one of the original UDP employment allocations. It's been allocated for employment uses for over 20 years. The outline permission was granted in 2014 and modified in 2018. The development of this site for this purpose has been on the cards for over 2 decades. The first employment unit on this site is now occupied, and there are more local businesses desperate to take more modern space in North Kirklees. Given the emerging economic picture, achieving business growth has to be one of the key priorities of the planning system at this time. We need to be ready to meet demand when the current restrictions on our movement ease further. There are businesses that are ready to move now, but can't. This application will provide for both of these opportunities. It will generate £12.5 million of GVA a year during operation and create £500,000 of business rates growth. This critical part of the Council's economic strategy is now even more important in the current economic climate. This is a reserved matters application, and it's a simple case of detailing the remaining units on the site. The planning permission has been in place for this scale and nature of development for many years. This application is fully in accordance with the outline permission. Floor space of this scale has been in short supply for many years, and 2 of the units have been designed with specific occupiers in mind. There are local occupiers who are keen to stay in Kirklees. However, the applicant has already lost 1 other local occupier to another site, not because of changing market conditions or reduced demand resulting from the coronavirus, but because of their increasingly urgent need to find somewhere that can deliver space quickly. But unfortunately, planning delays have undermined their confidence in the site being able to deliver. This has meant local jobs have gone elsewhere. I would very strongly urge you to consider how important these jobs will be to the population of Kirklees as we emerge from the lockdown. This site is ready to deliver and could generate around 350 new jobs. Even building the units will maintain around 85 jobs. We just need the final piece of the planning jigsaw to fall into place to make those jobs a reality. There are no technical issues that haven't been dealt with, and officers have thoroughly considered all of the relevant planning matters and found this development to be acceptable and in accordance with the outline permission. I would therefore like to endorse your officer's recommendation and ask you to approve this application today. Thanks for your time.
Right, thank you, Matthew. Right, members.
Thank you, Matthew.
First up, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. I listened to Councillor Bolt and his catalogue of problems that have occurred on the site, and it does seem to me that if what is alleged is true, then it's all very well asking for a site to be made available very quickly, but people have to stick to the rules. And I would like, well, I think I would probably move deferral because I think that we need to make sure that these alleged breaches of planning conditions are sorted out, because I don't see the point in giving permission and applying conditions if they're going to be flouted. So, as I say, I will formally move deferral. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Councillor Firth.
Yeah, just to say that there's a number of conditions that Councillor Bolt did mention that hasn't been addressed properly, and I'm rather worried about this because if we pass it today, they'll probably never even get addressed. So I have to think down the same lines as Councillor Pinnock in putting a deferral on this till these conditions are actually kept up with and are addressed. There's no point in passing something when we know there's a number of conditions haven't been addressed. There was the external lighting plan apparently where there's complaints from the general public about having light shining at night in their houses and bedrooms, and even operating with the traffic having problems. So that's just one of quite a number of the conditions that haven't been actually addressed. So I'll just leave it with that for the moment. Stephen, thank you.
Right, thanks, Donald. Cathy?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I have got concerns about the number of conditions, that have been mentioned within the report, and also what Councillor Bolt has actually said. I think this is the purpose why we have a planning committee and why we should be able to make these judgment calls. What I would like to do is, if it's possible, Chair, that if one of the officers can come back, because I'm sure with all these breaches, there must be numerous complaints that have gone in. So can I leave it for that, Chair, before I further comment?
Yeah. Donna, next.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Councillor Scott's basically covered a lot of what I wanted to say. Yeah, I'm obviously really concerned about the breaches and just wondered whether we could have any comment from enforcement or something, just find out how many complaints, etc. have gone in, because I'm on the same thinking of the moment as Councillor Pinnock, and I think, you know, we need another one. We need further information. So if nobody's second Councillor Pinnock's deferral, I will formally do that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donna. Matthias?
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, members. Yeah, and I hear this site is known to us, and that by us I mean planning compliance. It's had several site visits. It's had several meetings. Councillor Bolt's been at some of those meetings. It's had a cross-coordinated response between the various disciplines of the council involved in planning and general enforcement and highways adoptions. It is an ongoing site. There have been, as Councillor Bolt alluded to, there have been some breaches of the planning conditions. Have we known about them all and been able to make an assessment against them? Yes, we have. And has there been serious harm that's warranted serious enforcement action? We have taken action against this development in terms of breach of condition notices. So what we can do is bring you a report that details the planning investigation side of the discharge of condition process. I think we just need to be careful as a committee that we don't impede development because we have issues with compliance with some of their conditions. We've got to separate out the decision making from the compliance function. So I'm quite happy I can bring you a report that tells you what's happened on the site and what goes on, and we can do that, and that's not an unreasonable request from members. But we just need to be careful that we don't penalise developers because of previous breaches. The planning system is very clear about that. So I'm not saying committee is doing that. I'm just alluding to the distinction between the different aspects of decision making and compliance. I hope that clarifies the position, but I can certainly pick up the report that members basically are asking us for, if that helps.
Thanks, Matthias. Mohan?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this morning, I'm just feeling we have only 3 applications this morning on this planning committee. We have already deferred 3, and we are asking another deferment, 3 of them. I don't know how I'm feeling sitting on this planning. We are unable to make any decision on this valid decision. Are we not able to help to create more employment in Kirklees, where we are asking? Yeah. So we are not going to listen to our officer, planning officer, who brought this application, who Matthias just said the officer have taken some enforcement on the conditions in the past. What I'm going to ask, okay, I agree with the Councillor Martin board, which he mentioned some of these conditions, yeah. So, but Martin has said as well, if we delegate power to officer to look into this condition, negotiate this condition again with the applicant and come back on this. So what I'm going to ask, Chair, I think what we should, in principle, we should approve this application and give some delegated authority to our planning officer to go back to the applicant and renegotiation those breach condition, planning condition, and come back to the board. And in principle, we approve this application on condition of this discharging condition. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thanks, Mohan. Andrew?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I hear what Councillor Sokal said, but I do have to say that what I said just now, that we need development, but it shouldn't be at any price. It should be done properly, and if there are conditions that have been not complied with properly, then we should know about it. That, as somebody else said, is the whole point of having planning committees, that we have an oversight of what goes on. Now, whether it can be done by giving permission only on the understanding that the breaches are sorted out, I don't know whether legally we can do that, but in which case I might modify my motion. But I think that just at the moment, I would think that what Matthias Franklin is offering, a report into what has actually gone on the site, is a good way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Andrew. Cathy?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On planning, I don't want to impede any development, but also we've got to be on top of this about any breaches. And I am aware that these breaches might have been resolved in the past, or is there any current breaches? And I hear what Matthias is saying, bring us back a report. I'm happy to support this application on the principle that officers do work closely again with this applicant to ensure that there is no current issues at the moment, and resolve them before it actually happens if we can. So I'm happy to second Councillor Mohan Sokol, but with that conditioned that it's officers that lead with this.
Thanks, Cathy. Carol?
Thanks, Chair. I was I'm about to say more or less what Cathy has said. I mean, I too would be happy to second this. From what I understand from what Matthias was saying, the breaches that have occurred, they have taken action. I mean, not only have they investigated, but they have taken action when needed to. The conditions are the same conditions that are already in the previous application. So if we are aware of all the breaches that have taken place, then not only are we, but the applicant is as well, and they can be. I would hope that they would be doubly careful not to breach them in future. The actual application is, well, other than exactly the same conditions, which so I can't see how we can alter those particularly, but it is for the actual layout of the site and the appearance of the building. So I've got absolutely no problem with those. So it is only these breaches that have taken place in the past. I do take Matthias's point that we can't make an assumption that because they breached the conditions in the past that they will do so in the future. In fact, if anything, I make the assumption that having done that in the past, they won't make them do them again. I would be happy to see, I mean, this site has been an absolute mess for so long now. I would be very happy to see not only the jobs provided, which are going to be so sorely needed in the very near future, but also for this site to be finished and done with and tidied up. So I'm happy to move the officer, agree with the officer's recommendations.
Thanks, Carol. I'll just bring Councillor Firth in and then I'll go back to officers. Donald?
Oh, yeah, if we've got a smoking gun, we need to make sure we haven't got one, and that obviously is something underlying there with the conditions. Councillor Ball would not mention these conditions if there weren't some truth in it. There's no point, because we're going against things like businesses, and we don't want to do that. But we also don't want to pass things where conditions have been breached, because I've been on planning committee long enough to know that some people, when you pass a plan, they'll agree to all the conditions, and once the plan's been passed, they try to get rid of them and they don't do them. We don't need that. We just need it to be done properly. That's what I'm asking. If there are any conditions that have been breached, that still are in breach, then they need sorting out. and that.
Right. Because seems to have frozen out. Yeah.
That's
Right.
where the smoke is. As far as I'm concerned, I would give it my. Well, it's a bit hard to start going backwards. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Matthias, can you offer us any new advice on this?
Sum you up, Chair, so to speak. Yeah, I think members are being perfectly fair and reasonable in expressing the concerns that ward councillors have been expressing. Perfectly justified, perfectly reasonable, simply wanting a development to be carried out in accordance with its plans and the conditions done and dealt with in the proper time and fashion. We are in a difficult situation in terms of getting things done quickly, but we will get on top of our planning conditions as a general approach. They're important to us. They're important to the confidence in the council and the planning system. In this case, I think what members are saying to us are, right, we're comfortable with the reserved matters in terms of the size and scale and appearance and layout, but on the basis that these planning conditions that need to be followed through, we give some serious monitoring to, and we include ward members closely in that. I'm quite happy to put Lee Stoney on this project so that we get that certainty. Cadix are a very reputable developer. They're a very well-known developer, and they are looking to be in compliance with their conditions. They're also trying to respond to market conditions and site circumstances that come along. But we will keep them in compliance as we go through this development. And I think it's worthwhile that if members do accept the recommendation, that you ask for in future, and I'm not saying it'll be at the next cycle or the one after, but somewhere over the summer, a report is brought back that details the discharge of conditions of this site, so members can see the compliance, they can see the issues, they can see the action, and then they can see what's happened post this application with keeping the development in compliance with its approved plans and conditions. Happy to do that if that brings confidence into members about monitoring of planning permissions. Hope that helps members, Chair.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matthias. I mean, I'm okay with that. We do need new development without a doubt, but that said, we put conditions on planning applications. We put them on for a reason. We don't put them on just for the sake of it. So I would like it flagging up to these developers that we are going to be watching them, and they'll be brought to task if they're not following recommendations. It's only right and proper is that, because let's face it, end of the day, this is a damn big development that's going on, and it's one that we want, but let's, work in partnership, not against each other. So, members, it's been moved and seconded. Moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Scott. We'll go to a vote, and I'll go over to Richard now, and he'll go around screen. Donna, do you want to speak before we go to it?
If I can, Chair, it's just I'm still uncomfortable with this. I just don't think we've had all the information. Again, I think we should have had that report on what had gone off in the past, what's been going off, and this and the other. Exactly. It's clearly not there. I know Matthias has offered now to get it to us, and to be honest, I would rather still stick with deferral, because I think, lack of information, which seems to have been a bit of a running theme through today's papers. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Donna. Andrew?
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I do believe I moved deferral first.
Yes.
Before the other motion. Cheers.
Right.
Do you want to just refer to Deborah?
Deborah.
Hello, yes, Deborah. Hello, thank you. Yes, Deborah Wilkes, Legal Services. We've got, in terms of the officer recommendation, we've got a proposer and a seconder, and we also need to note the update report where there is an additional condition. In terms of taking the vote, if we do take deferral first, we need to know precisely what we're deferring on. It's been suggested that a report is produced about the enforcement history and its monitoring. Are members suggesting that we defer until that report has been produced, because we need a clear indication of why we're deferring?
Right,
thanks, Deborah.
Can I? Well, the point I made when I spoke earlier was that if there are alleged breaches of planning conditions and so on, then they need to be investigated, and that was the reason I wanted deferral.
We can't use this as in a punitive way. I mean, if members want to know factually what the situation is, that's fine, but it shouldn't impact upon your determination now, as Matthias has suggested.
Members, we don't seem to be getting anywhere with this.
If we're struggling with this, there's no reason why you can't take the vote to deal with the officer recommendation, because that can be considered to be a change in recommendation on the table, and you can vote on that and see how that goes.
Yeah, what we'll do, we'll take the vote from the officer's recommendation. This one moved by Councillor Sokol, seconded by Councillor Scott. So I'll hand over to Richard.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So to clarify, this is looking to accept the officer recommendation, although there was that additional requirement that Matthias mentioned about officers will keep a close eye at the compliance. We'll bring back a future report on the discharge of the conditions. So I'll start with Councillor Bellamy.
Can I just ask, is there a time limit on that, though, before I vote?
Deborah.
So what we're suggesting now is that the officer's recommendation is to approve as in the recommendation, but with an additional condition, and that is it. Matthias is suggesting that there will be at some point over the summer perhaps a report for information to give members confidence that we are monitoring this particular development from an enforcement perspective very closely. So there isn't a time limit on it as far as I'm aware, but it's just an indication of the officer's intention to give members confidence.
Matthias, do you want anything to add? Anything?
No, the time frame I would say is we do it over the summer. Think about the logistics of getting them commercially active on the site to enable the phase 2. Once you're seeing the development underway, you'd be able to see the discharge of conditions in place. So it makes sense for an element of development to happen. So it wouldn't be next committee, it would be sometime over the summer, because CADICs are active on this site. So it's a short turnaround to see compliance in place and the back history. Hope that helps.
Yeah, thanks, Matthias. Okay, so right, I'll hand over to Richard and we'll take a vote on it.
Okay, so to confirm, this is for approval of the officer recommendation, including the additional condition in the update. So, Councillor Bellamy?
Against.
Councillor Firth?
Well, again, I'm not very happy with this job, because at the end of the day, at the end of the day, not everything has been cut and dried, and we're asked to accept this, and it will be sorted out. Will it? So I'm against. Thank you.
Councillor Patterson?
For.
Councillor Pinnock?
well, I can't really be against this, but I'm still not happy that we've got the conditions not sorted out. But I will abstain rather reluctantly, because I think that we appear not to be doing anything about the problem.
Councillor Scott?
For.
Councillor Sokol?
For.
And Councillor Hall?
For.
Okay, so that is 1, 2, 3, 4 members have voted for approval, 2 members have voted against, and we've had 1 abstention. So the officer recommendation is approved. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Just flag it up again that these conditions are watched very, very closely, and they are brought to committee's attention when they can, and you know, some kind of report from Matthias and enforcement, what's being done, what actions being taken would be useful. I believe that that's it for today. I think you've got to stop online for a couple of minutes, 30 seconds, so it all winds down. So I shall be going home now to lay in a darkened room, and I'll see you all later.